Hello. We're doing some more creature illustration. This is the second one in the series, and this is also for Heroes Tears. Um, Real quick, I started this drawing out with a some line art, and I kind of wish that I had started out with the same thing I did with the Sea Drake that I did in the last episode, which is sort of like a I don't know, a loose charcoal take on digital illustration. What I'm doing here is really what I should be doing for a more exact design. When you're designing stuff kind of on the fly like this in one image, I don't know if it's right to do this, but I wanted to try this style. I'm really trying to nail down something that will be both quick and detailed and have motion. All the things that make an illustration both good and make you a reasonable amount of money per illustration, because if you go way too slow with it, doesn't matter how good it is, you can't make a living on it, and it's sort of something I've been dealing with recently. So trying to speed up my process a little bit. This is one way to do it, but it also kind of makes things a little bit exact. So I sort of like what I did the last time. So what I'm doing now is blocking in. So I made a rough, right, a rough sketch, and then I went over the top of it with a more exact line art, and then from there I basically had nailed down my shapes is what happened. So I was able to take a separate layer and do flat colors and use those as selections basically. The issue that I ran into here was the frustration with drawing over the top or drawing under or whatever. And what I really should have done is basically a more pure form of what I just described, which is doing those flats, but leaving them as their separate layers, so you can just hold control and click on the image in the layers on Photoshop, and it'll just select that whole area for you. But meanwhile, you're just drawing on one layer. I think that is probably the quickest way to go, but I still like not starting out with line art. I think it just made things too exact too quickly, and I ran into some issues with the client, Martin Lambert, with Heroes Tears, on this one in particular, and there might have been several factors involved there, but you want to remedy those in the future and not make the same mistake too many times. I guess more than once is it's asking too much to just not make the same mistake twice, I guess. But anyway, so yeah, I probably, because I went too quick into the flat colors, I think, instead of like leaving it a general thing, I made something that later had to be changed and cost me more time. But anyway, I'll get back into that because that's not as relevant now as it will be later in the video. So by the way, this is going 3,000 times the speed that I drew it normally, so you can do the math on that, I suppose. What I just did there was make a new brush. So I basically made the whole canvas empty for a second. I turned off all the layers, made a new layer, and made the one sucker that I was going to use for all the tentacles, for the suckers on the tentacles. That was just to speed up that process, and I could have gone about that a couple different ways. One being I could have rendered out on a separate layer and one tentacle and then duplicated that several times and wrapped around the form. The time it would have taken to do that is comparable, because what I end up doing here is I draw on all the tentacles with the suckers to the tentacles with that brush, that custom brush that I just made, and it's pretty quick to just slap it on there. You can see I'm doing that there. But what happens now, those aren't believable. You have to actually go back in and then draw the lighting onto them. So what might have been easier is just rendering one and duplicating that across the whole deal and warping it as needed, using the transform. transform warp tool, whatever. And yeah, that might have been the way to go about it. I don't know. I don't think, I'm not sure that would have given a better effect. You would have had to then keep that on its separate layer and then do like several layers that are like multiply layers, darkening it, screen layers, lightening it. So I think in the end, you probably do the same thing. Probably faster to do this. I'm not sure. One issue that I think was going on with this design really had to do with both my and Martin's personal lives at the time. I'm not sure. There was definitely miscommunication going on with this creature design that basically never happens with him as a client and me as the illustrator. So, or something new to me anyway. And I think it was just, I had just come back from Spectrum, Fantastic Art Live, and the Las Vegas Grand Prix for Magic. And yeah, I was just completely drained of energy. And I think he was too. Like, I think he was in the middle of his day job. He travels a lot for his day job, and he was kind of in the middle of a bunch of sales conventions himself. So, yeah, I think there was a lot of like shorthand communication going on, and as a result, yeah, got a little bit like lines crossed or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so one of the main things that was confusing, you see I'm changing the mouth there. I didn't understand, because he described it in the creature description. This is sort of a last minute, like, hey, I want this creature for Heroes Tears. He hadn't planned this in advance. It was just like sort of a spur of the moment thing. He told me shark teeth, but in my mind, I like couldn't imagine like that octopus head going with a shark mouth. And he really did want a shark mouth. And the way he described it on the second pass sort of solidified that idea, where the tentacles are coming out of certain parts of the jaw and lips instead of, as I initially thought, just that he had shark teeth and not a whole maw of sharkness. But remedied that pretty quickly. And later in the video, I adjust what that looks like as well to make it look more gruesome. At his suggestion, I was making this look like your basic Heroes Tears creature, and not so much like the Cthulhu origin that it was. This is the how I referred to it was the oh my god, the OMG. It's the actually OMMOG, Ommog, or I don't know how you pronounce that, but I'm not super familiar with the H.P. Lovecraft creatures, but I assume Martin is. I don't know. His suggestion for the creature, not mine. Anyway, yeah, there is again miscommunication going on with the fins here. The way I read it first were basically fish spines, I guess, coming out of the sides of the arms, and it didn't make sense to me to put a full fin on the side. I don't know how to explain it. It just, this is how I understood it the first time with these spikes, and later I change it to something else. He kept on asking me, hey, change it to be more slimy looking, and I kept on thinking, oh man, I have this, it looks kind of slimy to me, but okay. And like there was just all these things sort of in the way of our communication with each other, but in the end, I mean, I got a good creature design going on. I actually, in this video, don't show the final creature design. The fins, you can, by the way, if you want to see the final creature design, check out my DeviantArt page, which will be linked in the thingy at the bottom. But yeah, it's Razwit is my screen name on there. Everything's Razwit. Come on, get with it. So yeah, it ended up being just like one big fin along the side of the arms there, and it doesn't go all the way up the shoulder like that. But The important thing about this design, I think, ended up being, at Martin's suggestion, making it was basically the color for the fin, more than anything. Like, I think that really made the design, and as well as a decision I made to blacken the whites of the eye. So that was really important, and I kind of want to talk about that. These two things are very important. The color for the fins, which I'm changing right now, I think that kind of it gave some sort of rhythm to the colors of the creature, and as a result, made it more believable as a creature and more interesting visually. And the whitening of the eye was a decision I made because the eyes were described, and Martin wanted to keep them that way, as being like overly large human eyes. Now, the problem with that for a creepy character is that overly large eyes look cute because they're inherently round, right? Eyes are round, they're eyeballs, right? So they look like baby eyes. Like every time you look at a cat and they have huge wide eyes, it's cute. So I needed to either make the eyes very small or make them appear small by taking out the white. And there I did it there. So yeah, I mean, immediately you see creepy, scary. Yeah, I'm just basically the final touches I'm putting on this are just shines on the creature to make it look more slimy. I'm kind of rounding out a lot of the creases that I put on earlier, making the highlights more intense, and just generally just getting it to the look that I wanted in the first place. And here I'm just adjusting the teeth to make it look crazier at Martin's request. And yeah, also more square. The jaws were described as square, and I had a different interpretation of that when I started, and yeah, that's just me fixing it there. So I hope you enjoyed this sort of tutorial, talk through, client discussion, whatever. And I'd love it if you come back and join me again for another creature illustration. Thanks for stopping by. Peace out. Okay, bye.